Okay, so I'm planning on picking up where I left off last week. If you type into your URL, the site/admin, that'll take you to your dashboard. And we added the menus so that way you can manage marathons and add new marathons, manage runners, and then you have the registration form. So we hooked up the header and the menu last time. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into the manage marathons. And the reason I want to start here is I want us to be able to loop through and actually just get this set up the way we want it. And this is probably the easiest place to start just because this is going to mirror our database table. So we have races, and then within our races, password, we've got Joe's 5K, Bob's 5K. So we've got some data that we want to do. So we have the race name, the race location, the description, the race time. So this is going to be the data that I'm going to want to display on this form. So I'm just going to start by going to my Manage Marathons view. So I'm going to go to the site, application, my views, and I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. If I go to my admin, Manage Marathons. Okay, so I'm just going to blow some extra stuff away. I got more in here than I wanted. So specifically, the only thing I want is the contextual classes. So this row I want. Alright, so it's my beginning div. So I'm just going to get rid of the second column here. Instead of 6, I'm going to make that 12 because it's going to be the full size. So I'm just going to refresh this page. Okay, so that looks better. So what I want to do is I'm just going to kind of tighten this up a little bit. I think I'm just going to call this thing, instead of contextual class, I'm just going to call it marathons. Okay, so instead of having pages, I'm just going to call race name. And then instead of visits, it's going to be location. And then percent of whatever I deleted, it's going to be date. And then the last one's going to be actions. So I'm just going to save that. I'm going to take a look at this. Okay, so We've got a bunch of rows in here. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. And right here is one row, one TR, and my closing TR, which is my table row. My class, I'm just going to get rid of the class for now. I can add the class in later. I can start to get fancy with, if it's maybe a past race, I can put it to the red. But for right now, I'm just going to get the data out there. So I'm only going to have one row in here for now. I'm just going to delete out these other rows, just leaving me one TR. I'm going to save that, refresh that. Okay, so this is where I'm at. So I need to pull data from the database. And I want to do it a little bit different. We're using CodeIgniter, and CodeIgniter does have some built-in data functions, which are really cool for easier, simpler things. If you're doing something a little bit more complex, you're going to have to go back to the old PDO way of doing it, the way that we were doing it in the past. But for right now, I'm going to start by just creating another model. So we've got our member model. I'm going to create another model. I'm just going to call this one race. So I'm just going to copy it. And then I'm just going to paste it in here. Then I'm just going to give it a name. Race. Actually, member race. Yep. Say OK. And then the class needs to be changed from member to race. It's still going to extend the CI, the CodeIgniter model. All right, so what I need to do is I need to retrieve data, and I want to retrieve it in a different fashion. I want to be able to pull that data using CodeIgniter. So I'm just going to create a function here instead of user login. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this add user one. Instead of user login, I'm just going to call this one like get races. Get underscore races. And I'm not going to pass any parameters. No data is going to go into it's just going to get all the races. So if I say get races, it'll get the races. So it is going to have to make a database connection. I'm not going to do anything with sessions here. So we're loading up our database. And then I'm going to pretty much get rid of everything in here. So I'm just going to do my try. My catch is going to just not have anything in there. Okay, so I want to create a query. So I'm going to create a variable called query. And then this is going to be connected up to the local database. So this is local. And then it's going to be the single arrow. And then it's going to be DB. And then it's going to be another arrow. And it's going to be a get. And then within my parens, I'm going to pass in the table name. So I want the data back from race. So I'm just going to type in race. I'm going to put a semicolon at the end. So this is actually going to do a select statement. So the get within the database is going to automatically select star from races and return it into a query. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to return the query. But before I return it, I want to convert it from being an SQL query to an array. So I'm just going to do a result underscore array. And then this will convert that result into an array. So now we're going to have basically a data structure that we can enumerate through. So this is a lot easier than actually doing like the PDO and, you know, doing all of that work. It's all built in. The one thing is we need to make sure that our configuration is set up correctly. I know we worked in the configuration before. If you go into the configuration, there's a database. And we actually set things up like our DSN, our local host. We do have to define the database, even though it is within the DSN. The database is called PHP class. We need to make sure that's in there. And I think that's good. So as long as we throw that database name in there, we've got the username, password. So I'm just going to save this. Okay, so our model is good. So we are on the manage. So I want to be able to get that data and throw it back in and loop through it. So I need to get to the controller, because the controller is the thing that ties my model to my view. So that's really the mechanism there that ties these two together. So my controller is my admin controller. And then within my admin controller, I've got manage marathons, which right now I'm returning true to make the menu item stick. So over here, that's the true, just making that menu item stick. But I want to be able to pass in a second chunk of data. And that second chunk of data is going to be really what's going to be able to help us get what we need. All right, so the first thing I got to do is I got to load my model. So I'm going to do this. And then I'm just going to do a load. And I'm going to do a model. And then I got to pass in the name of the model, which we call this thing race. Just going to double check my model name. So it is race. Okay, so now with that model loaded, now we can actually tap into that and we can get the races from the race model. So what I'm going to do is we're throwing an array down to the view with the manage, basically the flag to say make this dark. So we did that. So I'm going to add in another element to this array. So I'm just going to go to my data and I'm going to create my own element, and I'm just going to call it races. And I can throw anything in here. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it equal to, and then I need to go to this. Then I need to go to my capital R race. So that's the model. And within the model I have the method. And the method was get races. So I'm going to get races. So then that's going to do my select star from wherever, and then it's going to pull that data and it's going to throw it inside this element of the array. But the whole array is going to be thrown down to the view. So at this point, I actually think we're in a good spot. So now I think the view will end up getting that data. So then what I want to do is I want to be able to loop through that view and start to append that data. So I have my races. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into one line. Just that way I don't have to do a ton of echo statements. I just want to be able to do one. And you can do a bunch of them if you prefer seeing them like that. You're welcome to do that. I'm just going to do one. Okay, and then I'm just going to wrap that in a PHP block. So if I save that, I mean same. Oh. Call to an undefined method. My race. Okay, so I'm refreshing it. It's going there. It's line 12, so I'm sure it's in my admin. No, must be in here, line 12. Oh, I'm missing an L. Result. Okay, so the data is being returned. Now what I want to do is I want to be able to get a hold of this and then enumerate through it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to my view, and then I'm just going to do a for each. And it is going to be my $. It's whatever I called it here, races. $races as race. So I'm just going to move this echo up into there. Save that, and then there should be 2 races. So if I refresh that, we got 2 of them, so that's a good sign. So I'm just going to create a couple of variables here just to hold out, like their name and stuff like that. So I'm just going to do a $name, and that's going to be equal to my race. And then this will be whatever it is inside the table. So within my table, I've got race name. And then if you ever forget, you can just go back over . There's the race name, race location, race description with an I. Alright, so I'm just going to do 4 of them to start with. Okay, so I've got my name, then I've got my location, and then I've got my date, and then I'll just do the ID. So race ID, race date. Actually, I think that's date time. Just going to quick double check. Date time, capital D, capital T. Date time, race location. Okay, so I'm just going to save this. So now I'm echoing out with a double quote. So my name can be concatenated right inside of here. So I'm just going to paste my name in there. The location's the next one. So I'm looking at the top going down. So I see race name, location, date, actions. Then for the actions, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go edit, space, pipe, space, delete. So the pipe is right above your enter key. So I'm just going to save this and refresh this and see what that looks like. So that looks good. That looks really good. So now I've got Joe's 5K. I can edit them. I can delete them. So roughly this is a good start. I'm going to go over to Add Marathon next.